Hello and welcome back to 1989, and I thought that this game wasn't quite as old as this. I thought this was 90s, but it's not. It's about as old as Altered Beast, actually. I just thought mainly because of the art style, actually. It seems to be a lot more refined, but I suppose Altered Beast had good art, so I think it's quite varied. I suppose it depends on who the developer was working with. Yeah, just how refined the sprite work was. It was always, I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. So what is it with the equal sign in this? Tyrese equals Flare. Death equals Adder. Does death equal an adder? I don't know. Edmund Blackadder, maybe. Gideus equals Thunderhead. Yeah, seriously, maybe I was a little bit autistic. Back then, this always confused me. Why is it death equals adder? I do remember this. I kind of like the pencil work. This must have been scanned pencil work there. Either that or it's a very good pixel art approximation of pencil work going on there. The little character illustrations. Really nice. Golden Axe was one of those games that seemed to get converted to every possible home computer or console back in the day. I remember I had this on the Atari ST. I've played it I've seen it on the Mega Drive and everything. Various sort of quality of versions. Yeah, this was one of those games that people in my generation always remember, and it seems one of those games that's really stood out. Let's give it a go. I'm going to be. The best thing about Golden Axe is the Dwarf. Yeah, in honour of the Bard, I choose the Dwarf. I never played as the Dwarf, actually. I think I played as the Barbarian most. See, it's not Death equals Adder there, it's just Death Adder. Alex, you seem to know this guy. It's something that's quite sophisticated about this. The way it automatically goes into combos when you hit someone. And I think you can lock stronger enemies and just remember clopping them over the head with your weapon or sword pommel or something. Oh, they could mob you actually if you weren't careful. It's actually surprisingly good AI going on here. The way that these enemies are charging you and trying to get behind you. It's not something I was looking out for in some of the other games. I think the Avengers game I just played. There we go. Clop him on the head. The sound effects are pretty good as well. I remember these guys. So annoying. What I quite liked was that the characters are all slightly different as well. You've got a lot of... there was some nice variation. You knew you were playing as a slightly different character. So these guys, they must have been sharing sketchbooks. This came out at the same time as Altered Beast, and of course these little purpley things that I'm riding here were the enemy in one of the enemies in Altered Beast. I remember. It's set in the same universe. It's interesting to think, actually. A Golden Axe Altered Beast crossover. Oh, stop kicking him. Nice little touch, actually, that you've got these sort of civilian characters in this who... Oh, there you go, you've got to line these up. Because you very rarely see... You often don't get that, the idea of sort of, NPCs who are sort of civilians, but they're actually affected by the action. Often in coin-ops, they're just standing in the background cheering. Oh, he picked me up for a change. I don't seem to get to change character halfway through. I wonder if that's because I've already dosed up on magic potions. Because I know the magic for each of the characters is different. Ah. Come on, get up. Come on, get here. kick you, little dwarf. Little gnome. What is he? Is he a gnome? There we go. It does add a lot to this game as well. I remember the story. Oh, I'm trying to kill them. They're minute, those people. Either I'm the world's tallest dwarf, or those assets were handled by a different art team, maybe. They weren't working on the main sprites. Yeah, that was stupid, wasn't it? It's not bad at background art. I remember there being a lot of character in the settings. But also actually just knowing what the story was really good. And I wish Altered Beast had had that. And other games as well. Just getting the character a little bit more invested in it. Also, it's interesting that in some games they'd be a lot more forgiving if you were stuck in a combo, like a melee combo, and it would give you some invincibility frames. There we go. But actually, this game doesn't let up. If you let your guard down and let someone get in behind you, they will take advantage of your blind spot. There we go. As you can see, he's sort of stalking around. He's aiming to get behind my character. So it's quite, yeah, definitely a nice little bit of AI. It makes it a bit of a challenge. Also encourages you to play this really with a friend. A good sort of variety of characters, enemies, and they all look the part. Collision detection's a little bit shonky at times, I think. I like the whole idea of riding animals though and things. It's not enough of these games have little elements like this, I think. Oh, here we go, some new enemies. Yeah, I remember some of these enemies sort of gradually working their way in. Oh, is there a difference between... Oh, one gives food. What does that mean? Do you get more life back? That's annoying, actually. I've just read it's quite a clever idea that if you don't use your magic, you risk losing it during these little scenes. The village was on the back of a giant turtle. The turtle takes us south across the sea. I remember the turtle village. Let's see. I did have this. So I had this on the ST, which was a pretty mediocre conversion. I know it was missing a lot of art assets. Can't remember even if these fire-breathing things were in it. Or whether there was all of them. I remember there not being so much of the turtle in it, the giant turtle. But I remember it being very playable, and the combat, at least, worked just as well. He almost sounds like he's about to start swearing. I don't know if there's a difference also between the colour of the enemies. Some are easier, and see, he's about to... I remember those guys always looking like they were holding big bunches of grapes. Those maces that he's carrying. Bigotry, heavy metal female barbarian. Yeah, there was this. I think the most I played this as a coin op was at an RAF base. Funny enough, where I was a member of the Air Training Corps, the Air Cadets, and we went to an RAF base where there was one of these in the office, well, not the officers' mess, but it was in the mess there, and we all played it after hard days of getting bee stings on the drill grounds and assault course or whatever. God, I can't believe I used to do that sort of rubbish. I know so many friends of mine that's from school who went into the forces. I don't know how they did it. I want to use a bit of magic. So, anyway, I want to actually review this. review, proper review. I don't know. Actually, I think it stands up quite well. It's got a nice sort of variety. It lacks the mini bosses. I think it could do with. I mean, it's got some mini bosses. I think they're not quite as interesting. They're fairly generic, actually. I guess that's where superhero games have their advantage. Like I was saying with Captain America and the Avengers, that those games have this sort of whole stable of characters they can draw on as for enemies, and they're really. And it's a shame there's not more of those comic book conversions, actually, for that reason. Also, there is some cheap shots for here. I mean, the enemy AI is so engrossed with. See what I was saying about monetization? That is a cheap enemy because that knight, because of course he had such a much longer reach that you've got to. Yeah, it's very easy to get caught out if you haven't if you're not changing your tactics from the normal enemies you've been fighting. So yeah, cheap enemy, and not particularly imaginative either. I think I remember this game being a lot more fun playing in tandem with another player. But yeah, the challenge is there. Worth giving a go, yeah. It's a bit. I think it's a little bit samey in places. It's nice they're introducing some new enemies. I vaguely remember these skeletons, and of course you're now waiting for them to come out of the ground. But it does suffer, I think, also with these sword and sorcery games, is that a lot of the. That's quite clever. You don't know. There's lots of these sort of like hatching points for the enemies. You don't know which one they're going to come out of, but it's not particularly tense. I think there is a problem in that the enemies all are dealt with in pretty much the same way. Guess it's one of the issues with these games. There's not as much melee. They're not making as much use of magicians. I mean, they had those dragon riders, which have a sort of a ranged attack, but not much was made of that, actually. Oh, what's this? Yeah, they're recycling the same enemies, just he seems to be fighting with a slightly different speed. Oh, that's interesting. He's multiplying. Come on, let's see if I can do some magic here. What's the magic button? There we go. Yeah, Golden Axe, classic game. Not a huge amount more to say about it, because I think everything that's been said about this game has been said. I can see why it became such a classic. Lovely artwork for the time. Also, kind of pushing the boundary as far as story was concerned. I think it'd be nice if it had a feature where you could change the character if you were getting bored of one, because they do play slightly differently. Interesting AI at first, but definitely one that's weighted towards having another player to help you with the crowd control, which I think makes what's making this feel a little bit frustrated to me. I'm feeling like I'm definitely getting a bit mobbed for no other reason than I'm playing solo. All right then. I'll see you later when I choose another game to play.